Spring is here. This is a emergency reaction pod, however you want to phrase it. But the Marlins, we have a lineup. We have a game one lineup. So this isn't a post-game review. This is a pre-game review. What is the lineup telling us? Tons to get into. This is Marlins Uncorked. Greetings from England and welcome to Marlins Uncorked. I am your host, of course, Peter Pratt. Hit me up at MiamiMarlins_UK. And the UK GOAT is also in the house. Shawnee B, how we doing, brother?
I'm doing well, Pete. We made it. It's spring.
We made it.
It doesn't feel like it, but it is apparently spring. We need some of that spring training Miami weather to come this way. But we are going to watch a Marlins game today. Some would say that that's not something to celebrate, but for us, it certainly is.
I'm feeling like it. I'm feeling pumped, to be honest with you. I mean, the life may be sucked out of me soon enough. I don't know, but it's just great to finally be back all the way back around. And now, like, games are starting, the real stuff starts. And like this, I mean, I've got on the rundown is effectively today's lineup. That's what we're going to talk about in this, relatively breezy emergency type episode that's going to drop here, just reacting to this Marlins lineup. But we're finally around. Baseball is finally back from a Marlins perspective. And there's some new things to look out for as we go. There's obviously going to be the ABS in action at certain points. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. There's new names to look out for. There's going to be new people calling the games. Like, generally, from a Marlins standpoint, there's a lot that's changing here, and a lot from a viewing experience, from a fan base, it's changing as well. So excited to see how things go. This is going to be a very interesting season generally, I think, 2025. Like, there's so much, everyone's minds are in so many different places, and everyone's got different prospects they're following and different views of what the Marlins can and will do. No, not everyone can be right, and most likely I probably won't be, knowing my history of that. But nevertheless, Sean, let's react to the first lineup that's out. We already knew the starting pitcher. Vayente Bayozo getting the start. I think everyone's going to have an inning as a starter, so we're not expecting any Sandy depth or anything like that. But Bayozo getting the start. Sandy's obviously on deck tomorrow. I think that one's on TV as well, by the way. So that's going to be, where the real fun starts potentially here for the Marlins. But with Bayozo going, just on him briefly before we get into this lineup, where's your head at with Bayozo generally heading into this year? Like, he obviously performed admirably, I would say, at the back end of 24. Do you see Bayozo as a realistic rotation option out of the gate for the Marlins if everyone is healthy? I know a few guys already on the IL, but for everyone that's currently in camp and healthy, can you see Bayozo actually cracking this rotation?
I think it's very early, obviously, because we've not even had a game yet. I think he'll fit in with a lot of guys at the back end of the rotation. I think it will be a case of he could be the fifth starter. He could start in the pen as a long man. He might even start at AAA. I think the spring is his to decide that.
Yeah,
you're right. He did have a okay-ish year, depending on which stats you look at.
Yeah,
I think you did tweet out something which had him top of the list of players who had a difference between the ERA and FIP, and for him that was a negative. So I don't see him being a 3.5 ERA pitcher. If he does, then good luck to him, and we'll have a blinder. But at the first start, he's going to get one inning. Let's just see some strikes. Let's see some control, and hopefully, it's the Marlins can rack up some clean innings, because, as we know, pitchers are ahead of the hitters. So if you're getting lit up in one of spring training, it's usually not a very good sign.
No, it isn't. No, you're right. And I'm glad you saw those stats, because it was a great graphic. I can't actually remember who put it out there, but, top of the list was that FIP ERA variance. And it was Vayente Bayozo effectively saying he was the luckiest pitcher in 2024 is kind of the summation you can make from that. And to be honest with you, the eye test kind of aligned to that really with Bayozo. He was always in trouble, but he always found a way to grit it out somehow. And different day, different season, different situation, the bounce of the ball, that ERA could have been 6 or 7, to be honest with you. Like, it was really tightrope stuff from Bayozo. But listen, we spoke about it on Locked On last year. I watched Vente Bayozo pitch. It felt very much like a Jordan Yamamoto situation. Like, actually reminded me of Yamamoto. And, we saw with Yamamoto, he started well, it tailed off. I could absolutely see the same thing happening with Bayozo. I hope it doesn't. I could see him, having a back end, number 5 starter, and that's fine. We'll see. So, listen, he's fighting for a job, though. I think that's interesting. I think, he's getting the start in game 1. I think that's an interesting nod to him, given that opportunity. But let's get into the offensive guys, because that's where I really want to spend our time. And the question to kick it all off here, Sean, is how much weight should we be putting into spring training game 1 lineup cards in terms of A, who's on them, B, the order, and C, the positions that different guys are playing? Like, how much real true stock should we be putting in at this point, in your opinion?
It depends on, when you've just mentioned 4 or 5 different situations, and all of them kind of have different ones. So the guys in the lineup, we know this isn't the opening day lineup. That's obvious. The order, a little bit. I think X and Otto being top of the lineup for me is something that's probably the closest to what the Marlins would have opening day. I don't think we're going to see Brian Fortes hitting 5th. On opening day. It would be a bit of a concern if he is. The positions a little bit. I mean, the Marlins are going to play the players where they want to see them play. Get them some time there. So a Paulie, for example, starting at third base means that they want to see what he can do there. He's obviously played there a little bit in his minor league career, but it is a case of they're trying people out where they want to give them a bit of experience and a bit of playing time. So it's a bit of this and a little bit of that, but ultimately not really that much.
Yeah, I was saying to you before, I went back as well and looked at last year's opening spring game lineup to get a sense of like what that looked like again, because, it was a Peter Bendix lineup effectively, right? So you can start to look at the body of evidence now and make some assessment or assumptions maybe. The lineup last year in spring game 1, by my unofficial count here, because it wasn't an official scorecard, but I think they had Xavier Edwards leading off, playing shortstop, Bell, Berger, DLC, Jesus Sanchez, Trey Mancini, Dane Myers, Nick Fortes, and Vidal Brujan. So, for me, that was X didn't start the year at the big league level. Neither did Dane. They actually both had decent springs, but those guys ended up becoming a big part of the season. And so I think that's very interesting that was the last year's approach. And when I look at 2025's game 1, I can certainly see some guys that are going to have a lot of opportunity this year. There's ones that we know about, you've already mentioned. X and Otto, 1, 2. I think that's a really interesting mix. So let's just talk about them briefly there. Firstly, on X and Otto, X is at shortstop, Otto at second base. There's going to be a lot of discourse in this topic area. We probably haven't got time to really deep dive on it today, but do you see that as the everyday middle infield cluster in the main here for the Marlins? X short, Otto second. Is that how you're seeing things?
I think they are the most locked in concrete positions that the Marlins have, not just offensively, but also defensively. I think Otto is a great second baseman. I think he's a great second baseman. I think X is a serviceable shortstop. He's not great, but he's fine. And I think those two are by far the leaders in the pack as far as concrete in the place in there. Sanchez is probably third there.
Yeah. I'm just interested to see whether Otto spends any time or much time at short. I want to see if those two guys flip fundamentally in my mind. Like, that's the thing I'm thinking is, like, do we see X flip at the second, or is just X just locked in at short? He plays nowhere else in spring. Again, I think that'd be really telling about where the Marlins are at with Xavier Edwards. When you look at Savant, and most people use Savant because it's easy to digest as a non-analytical mind like mine, there's a lot of blue in his profile, Xavier Edwards at shortstop, and very blue, to be honest with you. And that kind of, to me, gives me that sense of, well, I wonder if that is going to be the approach. So, okay, we got those two guys. There's a lot to dig into in Otto Lopez. I shared something on Twitter yesterday that started a whole host of discourse that we haven't got time for today. Let's talk about the first base situation, because it's definitely an intriguing one. There's quite a few names on this roster that I think could spend quite a bit of time at first base. Mervis is getting the start there today, hitting in the 3 spot. A lot of people see him maybe as the opening day starter at first base. Obviously, Jonah Bride finished the season well. There's other guys, Davison De Los Santos, potentially Augustin Ramirez, a few others, maybe Troy Johnston, let's say, a few other first base candidates. But Mervis in game one in the 3 spot at first base, is this a little nod to maybe where the Marlins' heads are at this point?
I don't think so. I think it's Bride's job to lose. I think Mervis is. It's tough, isn't it? I think if he's not going to be your opening day first baseman and you're not comfortable with him at third, which they won't be for sure. He is a first base DH only. That's a tough thing to put on a bench nowadays when you're talking a shortened bench in the modern era. So I think he is. If he's not going to be fighting for that job with Bride, which I don't think he is, unless Bride struggles, I think he is literally playing for next man up position against probably Johnston, which Mervis almost certainly will win because Troy just is. I'm now beholden to the idea that he just never gets a chance. He just stays at AAA for the next 5 years. Obviously, I don't want that for him. It'd be a shame not to see him, but it's just the narrative now is. It's too funny not to keep going with it.
I mean, I think when Troy Johnston ends his career, whenever that may be, I think in all likelihoods, he may end up with a statue erected outside of the Jumbo Shrimp ballpark. Like he's probably by that time been one of the greatest AAA players of all time. for whatever reason, for Troy Johnston. He's just not had an opportunity in an organization that has created opportunities for so many in recent months. But I don't think the door's fully closed on him this year. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of, I think, roster churn. So we'll wait to see with Troy Johnston. And who knows? Like if he comes and lights it up in spring, who knows? Just on Mervis, though, by the way, do you see him making the 26 man to start?
No, I think just because of his positional eligibility, if he's not beating that Bride, then I just don't see a way that the team can keep him on the 26-man roster. I think, it is a case of he'll be down at AAA.
Yeah. Should we read anything into Derek Hill in the cleanup spot today?
No, absolutely not. The positions are what they are just because they've got put them into the team. Obviously, they're not all going to finish the game either. There's going to be a lot of chopping and changing. The actual key spots like the lead off and the clean up and all that really don't matter.
No. Okay. I think we start to get into interesting territory now at the mid to bottom part of this order. And so this is where these are where the eyeballs will focus. X and Otto, they're locks. You've already talked about it. I think Derek Hill, to be honest with you, is probably a lock to make the opening day roster because of his, center field defense and short side platoon aspect. Mervis, I think, is fighting for a job. Graham Pauley, here's where I think things starting, and I have to be honest, I've not seen an at-bat ever from Graham Pauley because, he was acquired in the trade. I don't even know which one because they made so many with the Padres. It's either Arias or I think it was the Arias deal, Pauley. And then, I just haven't seen anything of him. So this is going to be my first time kind of really focusing in on Pauley. He's on the 40-man, so he's fighting for a job. You look at his 2024. He had 32 at-bats, 4 hits, 2 home runs, hit 125, an OPS plus of 17. So, in the limited opportunity with the Padres, didn't really make much of an impact apart from them 2 home runs. So for Graham Pauley, where's your head at with him? In my opinion, with third base, it's wide open. I know they're talking of Connor Norby, but I'm looking third base just more generally. There's opportunity here for guys. So Pauley, I think, sneaky outside chance to make the roster if maybe things kind of break his way. What about you?
Yeah, I'd call it a dark horse situation at the moment. It's if you look at his numbers, sort of like in the high minors, before he came to Miami, look pretty good. Like these are numbers that you're going, oh, this is a guy that could probably earn himself a spot on the lineup. As it is, since he came over to Miami, it's not worked out. So he's had the off season, he's got himself comfortable. He'll be, he's set up with wherever he's living now. This is now his opportunity. And as you said, third base isn't locked in as far as we know that Norby isn't really a natural third baseman. If there's any injury across any of the infield, the Marlins would be beholden to move Norby back into the middle of the infield, opening up a spot for Paulie or Wagaman. Both of these guys are literally fighting for next men up jobs. These aren't guys that aren't going to break into the opening day lineup. They might find themselves on the 26th man on the bench, but ultimately, I think they are wait at AAA. There will be a phone call at some point in April or May or June or whenever it is. We know there's an attrition at the major league level. These guys are going to literally be having an opportunity at the major league level at some point this year. So this spring for them is key, and it's not just offensively but defensively that I want to see. As you said, we've not seen Paulie play, and that's for us as fans just as key as it is for the organization to actually get to see these guys.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I think that's great call out, by the way. I think really Paulie, Wagaman, I'm going to be looking at their defense specifically. I mean, Wagaman's DHing today, but it feels to me like that's where this jostle will maybe, I mean, if the sticks are similar, then that's where they'll lean to, which kind of sounds obvious when I say it out loud. But like, where's your head at? Do you think, let's assume one of them makes the 26 man, and I haven't maybe done the numbers to think, is that possible? I mean, clearly it's possible, but Paulie or Wagaman, like before a pitch is thrown in spring, who would you lean to if indeed one of those was going to make the 26er?
I would probably go with Paulie, partly for age, partly because he's played other positions. I mean, Wagaman's first third. Paulie's probably got some experience at second base in the minors, I think I've seen. So he's got that little bit of extra flexibility. He's also got the age benefit that we're talking about a player that might have a future. Wagaman is a 27-year-old guy who's just not a placeholder, but he's not something for the future.
No.
And that all depends on the stick. I think if Paulie hits Paulie, literally, and Wagaman hits well, then they're going to choose Wagaman no matter what. So I think they're both in an equal race, but if they're both equally sort of doing okay, if one of them is going to be on the 40 man, I do as the 26 man, I think it would be Paulie.
It's close. I think I lean probably the other way. Maybe I don't know, to be honest with you, and I've never seen anything from Wagaman either. And so this is kind of what spring is. It's a learning exercise for all of us. Like, me, mate. I trust my eyes more than anything, and I'll get that initial read of who I think looks looks the better of the two, perhaps, or who looks like a big leaguer or whatever it might be. But I get the sense that maybe Paulie's more likely to be optioned, and Wagaman maybe fills that bench role and cycles around third base or whatever it might be. We'll wait and see. Talk to you about Andrew Pintar though, because he's also starting today in a corner outfield spot. It's probably a lot of jostling in the outfield group generally because, well, the Marlins have got about 6 guys on the 40-man right now that are all effectively fourth outfielders or worse. So there's competition, but it's not super high level competition. So a guy like Andrew Pintar, for example, like, he'll be thinking, what opportunity is there for him? I'm not certain that he's played a ton of right field previously either. So there's that aspect of it. He is playing right field today, but Pintar, obviously, he came over as part of the I want to say the Puck deal. Is that right? Have I got that right?
That's right.
He came over in the Puck deal. So he was mainly with Arizona in their system last year. He came to Miami. And from what we can see at AA Pensacola, unfortunately, like a lot of prospects last year, they were performing well in their original organization. They came to the Marlins. They've all regressed. Pretty much all of these numbers all took a dive. Pintar the same, Paulie the same, Martorella the same. All of these guys that were absolutely lighting up of being traded for, and they all took a step back from the numbers that I can see, Pintar being one of them. So what kind of profile does he have? What should we expect from Pintar, if anything, at this point? And, is this, he's bottom of the lineup on game one in a mixed lineup anyway? Maybe that tells us kind of all we need to know potentially. What about you?
Yeah, that's a few of those questions. He's played 4 games at right field, traditionally a centre fielder in the minors.
Yeah.
For me, I think he's probably got too far to go. He's had 10 games. He had 10 games at AA with Arizona and 33 games with Miami at the AA level. I think he's still too far away from the major leagues to expect too much. He's not young. He's 24, which You know, you want to see some more time at AA and AAA by that time, ideally. So he's obviously not sped through the minors. You know, he had a good start in 2024 in Arizona. There's a bit of pop in the bat. There's quite a bit of speed as well. But I just think he's too raw at the moment. I think he's too far away as far as experience at the major league level. But I think his speed and his defensive, obviously he's played center field most of his minor league career. That will keep him in and around that sort of 40-man crunch. A Mag Sierra type, I suppose, is probably the best.
Let's go.
But with a little bit more pop, because obviously Mag's, you know, I don't think he probably had a minor league home run in his career.
Probably not. No. So it's an interesting one, right? Because at high A in 24 within the Diamondbacks organization, so where the Marlins he'd just been looks of it anyway, promoted to AA. But he spent a good portion of the season. He was hitting over 300 in high A, 9 home runs, 17 stolen bags. So, like, you know, you're looking at that and going, okay, you're 23-year-old, you know, at the higher end, I guess, of the age bracket, just about, but really performing, stepped up to AA, which in reality is normally quite a tricky step up, depending, you know, from a pitching standpoint. You do normally, I guess, face into some upper end prospects there that are moving through. And both with the Diamondbacks and Marlins organizations kind of struggled at AA. And so, to your point, Pintar at this point, you know, he's a name that's interesting, but it's still for him, I think, adjusting to that level up. He's moved up, and he's not quite caught up yet. And so that's going to be the next step for him. But if all of a sudden you can get hitting 300, you know, a chunk of home runs in there and a few stolen bags to go with it at center field, then you start to feel a little bit differently about Andrew Pintar moving forward. So a name to watch, a name I'm intrigued about. He's just one of a cluster of new names and new prospects that through spring we're going to start to see people emerge, and maybe Pintar's one of them. Sean, one final question, then we'll get out of here, because I did say it'd be 25 minutes max. Of this group, on day one, game one of spring, who are you most excited about for 2025?
I think I've got to go with Otto. I think he's one of the players that I'm sort of gravitated towards, you know, as we've come to the season. I think he had a great year last year. He was, you know, the defense is amazing. The speed is there. I think a full season of him will put him on the lips of every Marlins fan as a clear, you know, piece for the future.
Yeah, there's a lot of love brewing for Otto Lopez, I would say, on Twitter and generally, and you're rightly so. The defense is unquestioned, was absolutely immense there at second base. The stick was up, then down, then up. And so if it could be more up than down with Gold Glove caliber defense at second base, then he's going to become a Marlins fan favorite, no doubt about it. I think he's got a jersey number adjustment as well. I feel like he's got a jersey number now that's like, I'm a starter. Like it's number 3 or 5 or something like that. And so, you know, read into that what you want. I think Derek Hill's got a similar number as well. So, you know, take that with a pinch of salt. But the one name that I'm interested about in this group specifically, and I am interested with Otto Lopez too, by the way, but I'm very interested to see what we see from Griffin Conine this year specifically. Because I feel like Griff probably was starting to feel like it wasn't going to happen for him. Like the Marlins and Griffin Conine and the way that things went and the lack of opportunity created, maybe Griff was starting to lose a bit of confidence or just considering like, is this going to happen at all? And I think he performed well at the big league level. And I feel like when you walk into a spring, having performed admirably, let's say, at the big league level, you're now a big leaguer, you'll feel different. And I'm very interested to see what Griffin Conine can do with that degree of confidence, that little boost of, I'm a big leaguer here. There's a job for me to have. I'm on the 40-man. I have a really good chance to be on the opening day roster and starting, to be honest with you. Like, I think he's in a head-to-head battle with Kyle Stowers. And we talk about Stowers tons because he was acquired in a trade and we want him to be good because we want to win trades. But listen, Kyle Stowers, and what I've seen, has been well below par. Like, take away the history and just look at what Kyle Stowers did with the Marlins. I'm taking Conine over Stowers 9 out of 10. You know, do you know what I mean? Like, it looks clear to me that Conine's way beyond Kyle Stowers in that small sample. So Very interested to see what type of spring Griffin Conine can deliver. We're all a big fan of the name, and I think we all want him to do well as a Marlin too. So for me, that's who I'm really watching out for in this, not this group, but also in spring too. Guys, we're going to wrap it up there because we're out of time. That has been a live stream extravaganza emergency reaction pod to the first Marlins spring training lineup. The UK GOAT Sean Barrett hopping on. This episode is available everywhere. So if you've watched it on Twitter or X live, great. Thank you guys. Also, this is available YouTube, every podcast outlet, wherever you get your pods. Free to air for everyone. There's other episodes coming later over through the weekend. Those are only available via the Patreon membership. So if you want that, hit that up. £3 per month or circa $4 per month, whatever the exchange rate is at that moment. So if you want that, go ahead and subscribe over there. But guys, the Marlins are back. Beyozo on the mound. Let's go and get it. We'll look forward to seeing you soon.